Hello and welcome to Nightlight Astrology's Weekend Wisdom Series. I'm Whitney Crayons.
I'm Amorosi.
I'm also Whitney Crayons.
You did it!
We were so close to nailing
I thought you were going to do it,
guys.
Alex. I thought you were going to
We are all Whitney Crayons.
We are all Whitney.
Today, 3 is 1 and 1 is 3. But just in case you don't know, that's Alexandra Blair. And she is playing with us.
Yeah, sorry.
We love it. We love it. All right, so let's get down to business, right? The weekend news desk update coming to you this weekend. We are talking about a massive vibe shift on our hands. And listen, we all know, right? Coming out of eclipse season, we have had a couple rough weeks of astrology. We had a Mars-Pluto square, we've had the Sun and Venus in their fall, but here's the headline, is that the tide is turning, right? And why is that happening? Well, several things we're going to talk about today. So we have Venus entering Libra, which totally changes things. We have a beautiful Libra full moon, new moon, and we have the beginning of our water trines this fall and winter. So, you know, this period of time, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts right off the top of your head, or we can just dive right into what happens when Venus enters Libra. But, you know, I would say the SparkNote version here is like just good astrology. It's ooey gooey, it's fertile magic, and I know that I'm ready for it. What about you guys?
Oh, yes. I'm always ready for it when Venus goes into Libra. Are you kidding? Please. Sign me up.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. That would be an absolutely 100%. Because let me tell you, Venus and Virgo and the Mars and Pluto and like the existential dread of all this, you know. When Venus enters Libra, I first thought this when I was recording with Adam years ago, and I always think Venus moves into Libra after something has been happening or before she gets to Libra. While she's in Virgo, there's usually some kind of drama, and she goes to Libra and she's like, now I'm not mad, but we need to clean things up here. We need to get things are imbalanced. I'm not mad, as any Libra would say, I'm not mad, I'm mad, and I'm gonna get this back in order. And I feel like when Venus moves back into Libra, there's a sense where, you know, Venus and Virgo can worry. Venus and Virgo can parse things apart. Venus and Virgo can overthink. Venus and Virgo can really be tentative. I'm not sure I'm good enough, if I can, if what is represented in Libra of truth and beauty and justice and these ideas can really succeed. And then she moves into Libra and it's just like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. Like, I remember how to do this. I know how to get it back in order. And I think it also leads us up to a really nice period of time where Jupiter and Venus are sextile to each other in a really nice relationship to each other. We have Mars really strong, which we'll talk about, which has its own benefits. Mars in Scorpio sometimes can be challenging, but any planet in, any sign can be challenging. But I think that there's a lot of beautiful stuff coming, and I do agree, Whitney, and I love the title of what we're doing today. The tide is changing. There's an upliftment, a harmony coming, I think.
For sure. I mean, this is a time period that I've been looking at since even last year. You know, not all astrologers do sort of like transit stuff. Obviously, Whitney, Alex, and myself all do that kind of work. And even in preparing last year this time to talk about this coming year, this was the time period that I have been looking at all year. Like, hey, if I can just make it to the October 13th through November 7th, particularly with Venus and Libra, it's going to be okay. And, you know, I don't think things have totally shaken out from eclipse season yet. I think a lot of people are still sitting in that. But things do shift. Part of that is Mars moving into Scorpio. And Alex, to your point, there is some difficulty, of course, with a strong Mars, right? Like a strong Mars sometimes means a more capable Mars, a Mars that is a more elegantly equipped to advocate for its agenda, the martial agenda. But I think that with Saturn coming in and out of Aries and some of the other astrology and some of the solar stuff that we've seen this year, I have felt temperamentally, a real dry a dryness, a masculine dryness that is coming through. And Venus in Virgo is not equipped to provide a cooling rosewater breeze to what's going on. Whereas I feel like when she comes into Libra, yeah, a little cooling rose water.
Yeah.
She's going to be like, everybody calm down, like you said, Alex. And in our Libra dignity conversation, we talked about the Libran archetype of the sorority president. And I feel like that's exactly what's happening. It's like, it's madness without her. She had to go on a little side quest and now she's back. And she's like, okay, let's get this all together. And I feel really excited about what Mars is doing because even in Scorpio, it is in a more nocturnal, feminine place that I think is counterbalancing some of this very dry, desert, masculine stuff that I'm just feeling coming up in the collective and in culture and things that are going on.
So we're here to rehydrate things. I love it. Let's pull
With the
up
grand water trine.
Exactly.
Wow.
The tide is turning. Uh-oh, I'm singing again. So we better start looking at a chart, right? Distract me. Okay, so I have on the screen, I'm actually showing the 14th of October. That's because the chart I pulled for the 13th, it didn't have Venus in Libra yet. So here we are. Venus enters Libra on the 13th of October, and you'll see that before she does that, she opposes Saturn directly from Virgo and moves into what we have all been talking about, the kite that has been forming in the sky since early mid-August. Remember, Mars went through that kite first, right? Then we had the sun, Mercury as well. And so here is Venus coming in to hold that tension. But as we have all talked about, Venus in Libra feels a lot different than a Mars in Libra, a Sun in Libra, right? And the best thing about this, what I am seeing, is that Venus has this sense of agency here. And I feel like, you know, a Venus opposite Neptune situation is just naturally going to feel better, more romantic, more that ooey gooey that I was mentioning, right? Than say a Sun Neptune that might have felt a little dissociative or confusing, right? And to me, this feels like in this kite formation that Venus is working to sew things back together, right? Like if Mars had ripped our seams, Venus is here to kind of knit it all back. And I think that Venus in Libra too, beyond reaching out to our friends, our loved ones, our, you know, sort of camaraderie and asking, are you okay? You know, there is this way that we are allowed to sort of choose what feels good. Like with all of this change that we've been going through for months, we're allowed, not that we need permission, but Venus's entrance into her own sign gives us the sense that like we're allowed to choose what feels good here, and it's not even really like a choice. It's just like instinct. It's instinct over intellect. So I'm really digging this time. When you guys look at this chart, I mean, I know we've already started to talk about it, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I think like, you know, and I misspoke before, it's a square between Jupiter and Venus that they're moving into now, but having both benefics feel strong can often feel in their, you know, Jupiter in exaltation and Venus in her home sign can feel really nice. It can feel a little bit more orderly. I think that that's something I would see with both, you know, Jupiter and Venus being strong in the sky for sure. It's a little bit like, you know, Venus opposing Neptune. There's something interesting I've noticed in people I've known who have Venus and Neptune in hard aspects in their chart is they almost mythologize their relationships, right? There's a sense of like grand mythological language that describes, you know, a relationship or the way they're in a relationship. There's this very sort of big and open and not imagined, but like this is ideal that's created from it. And I think that, you know, one of the things that can be really helpful is, there's certain ideals that we'll never reach as humans. I was actually just talking about this last night with someone else. But they're important for us as humans. They're important for us. It's important for us to have like things that we strive for that we may never reach, but they orient us in the right direction. And I feel like Venus and Neptune here can be something like that, where it's like, it's okay if like the Eden that we created in our mind isn't actually there, but we can strive to be better. We can strive towards that. Just recognizing that it's an idea that we're moving towards. It may not be an actual place. And I think that the thing I've loved about this kite are the air trines between Uranus and Pluto. I've loved this for the whole time that this has been happening, this configuration, everybody moving through, because just Venus opposing Neptune, you can get lost in sort of the potential of hope, this eternal potential of hope, right? It's going to be different, it's going to be different, it's going to be different. The air trines are like, well, we can make it different, and we can think about how to do that, and we can have very planned out, rational, relational steps, communication around how to do it. So there's actionable, tangible things we can do with that trine, as well as dream towards the ideals.
That's especially true because as they start, Saturn is here. So those air trines, because Pluto will be in Aquarius for 19 more years, because Uranus will be in Gemini for 8 more years, we're going to have some degree of those air trines repeating for at least the next 8 years. And it's starting out really strong with Saturn as the backbone of the kite, essentially, not just the trine. Right. I think, Alex, to your point, the moon will be in Cancer with Jupiter when Venus moves in. So if this chart goes back just a little bit, I don't think you have to go back, Whitney, but yeah, the moon will be in Cancer. And so it's really, the moon is tying together, and will be as it moves through that quarter of the zodiac. It is really tying together that square. And we say this a lot, but I just think it bears repeating anytime we can, that honestly, any aspect from a benefic is preferable to a benefic in aversion. So I have seen time and again that like a Venus-Jupiter square, yeah, there's some tension implied sometimes. There's sometimes pressure. There's sometimes goading. But that's two good forces who are trying to provide life-supportive conditions goading one another, which is actually really positive. And the last thing I wanted to say about this that I think is pretty interesting about this time period specifically is that Libra and Pisces, if I'm not mistaken, are Antisha signs. So Venus not only moves into this air trine, making by far the best version of this air trine. We had Mars in detriment, then we have the sun in fall, Mercury fine. But Venus is an active benefic, wanting good things for us in her home sign of Libra, and forming now, moving from this opposition with Saturn with her in Virgo into a sneaky conjunction with Saturn across those Antisha signs. So I think there is definitely a strength and a grace and a dignity to Saturn, which we see echoed as this time period continues, because Saturn is so involved in these water trines too.
I love that you bring up the Antisha. I didn't catch that myself, but isn't that so cool? Because when Venus moves in to Virgo, within like a day, she's in that secret conjunction with Saturn, and it's like it carries through, even though the, kite is technically out of sign with Saturn in Pisces, but it's there, right? In the symbolism of Antisha. And for those who aren't certain what Antisha means, I mean, that's a pretty deep astro nerd term, right?
Definitely sign up for Adam's year 1 course.
Exactly.
Early bird race.
Beginning November 8th.
20. Yeah.
Actually, you guys, I think that's year 2, but no.
I think he says it in year 1, but yeah, go ahead.
You're totally right. But this secret conjunction is formed across signs with the similar quality of light, right? And we do that by splitting the wheel of the year on the equinox and solstice axes, which give us Antisha, secret conjunction, and contra Antisha, secret opposition. So kind of a fun fact there. The other thing that I noticed about this chart, and I'll just go back a couple days to when Venus actually enters the sign of Libra. But it's interesting to me that in this chart, you can see Pluto is stationing as well. Pluto is stationing direct, and I think that's like an interesting little level of nuance involved here in this grand air trine that we're talking about, right? With Pluto stationing to move direct, it feels like what we're working with here is really powerful, and it's helping us to pick up momentum. It is helping us to move forward. And you know, it's hard to say, like, what are you going to feel the most? But technically, and outer planets, I mean, we can typically feel those stations quite significantly. I would imagine that this Pluto Trine Venus dynamic will be really, really strong during this mid-October portion, right? This sort of like the eruptive power of passion is something that comes to mind just, you know, right off the top of my head. So I think that's another interesting little bit of nuance here. I don't know if you guys want to comment on that or if we should move on to the next.
I think I just wanted to add. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. No, that's
Okay,
fine.
one thing I wanted to. The Alexes.
I love
You go. Venus is dignifying the sun, and that counts for a lot. And that's it. That's all I actually wanted to say. Is like the sun getting Venus's dignity really is going to change the way things feel.
Yeah.
Was that what you wanted to say too, other Alex? No.
No, I was just enjoying the point. That's really all I was doing. Then I just went back to just sitting here and being pretty in my yellow. So there we go.
Sit and be pretty. I love it. Okay, I'm going to bring up our next chart then to keep us rolling. Next, we're going to talk about a certain planet that we don't often get to associate with the best, most optimistic positivity, and that is Mars, who is in a conjunction on the 20th of October with Mercury. Oh, good, I got the right chart. You know, half of this shit is the technical stuff, right? I'm like, please let me share the right chart.
Yep.
So you'll see here on the 20th that Mercury and Mars conjoin in Scorpio, and I kind of gave it away, right? The fact that Mars we don't usually get to talk about in these most positive of positivities, right? But I think this is such a sneaky good conjunction, and really it is part of this transformative process when we've been talking about now for months these air trines, right? And we've been looking forward. We know at this point that there are a couple months in our fall winter season that are water trines, and this is the part, this Mars Mercury conjunction is really what creates that transformative process of where we shift from air to water trines. And you know, just like when we think of Mars and Mercury together in Scorpio here, like just some general keywords. I know I'm thinking of like the ultimate in like strategy and cunning, right? And it's kind of like special ops nature. But when we talk about sort of what makes this so good, I feel like this is when we uncover, we discover, we found the solution, and that is a solution that is tied to everything we've been going through with these trine/kite situation, right? I think it's also really interesting because there's some history here. I know Alexandra and I went down this like crazy wild rabbit hole of Mars Mercury when we were sort of prepping for a different piece of content of how, if you will recall, in August we had Mars and Mercury sextile each other twice. I believe that was when Mercury was in Leo and Mars was in Libra, right? Mars was doing its little like diplomat thing. But because of the retrograde of Mercury at that point and turning direct and the acceleration of the planet, we got 2 sextiles right in a row. And so I feel like that's from a historical standpoint. And did I write the dates here on my notes? No, I didn't. That was dumb, but I bet Alexandra's going to pull them up because she's really quick with that stuff. But this is one of those things where if we can, I feel like it was like the 16th and the 12th or something around there of August. But if we think back to that time when Mars and Mercury sextiled twice, I would imagine that we can tie in a storyline of what we're bringing to fruition here at this particular conjunction of those planets. Did I give you enough time to pull up some dates, Alexandra? Or am I asking too much of you?
No, I do have it up. August 15th and August 18th, and I have some other dates too. But I want to hear from Alex first.
Well, you know what I love about this too is like this signals back to me Mercury's going back to Mercury's station direct, which was slightly opposite Pluto. It never quite got opposite Pluto, but this ties in what you were saying about Pluto, Whitney, which I think does sit in the background of this, right? That Mercury is still carrying from that station some Pluto stuff, right? Some transformed stuff from Pluto that may not altogether have been seen yet. But when Mercury in Scorpio hits Mars in Scorpio, that to me is like we're getting to the bottom of what that is. And the fact that Pluto, as you were just talking about, was stationing at this point at the same, it just speaks to me of like stationing direct, you're uncovering things. Mars and Mercury together in Scorpio to me is like, I will not rest until I know exactly what happened. And I don't care how dark or disturbing or inconvenient it is to see, I'm willing to see it. I think that's one of the greatest strengths of Scorpio is like, something I've seen in practice a lot is people who are trauma therapists, ER doctors, ICU nurses. That's very common when you see Scorpio strong in the chart. There's an intensity and a desire to really like, let's get down to like the high stakes need to know the truth here. Even if it's difficult, even if it's hard to see, even if it's gross to see, whatever it is, I want to know whatever the truth really is, because in that there's a transformation. There's something that's, and I really do see this as the beginning of some kind of turnaround of transformation of that type of material. Something getting revealed, seen, understood, noticed, investigated. Those are all things verbs or ideas I would use for that.
Definitely. To your point, Alex, too, the moon comes in to Scorpio and does her job as weaver. She holds into that Mercury, Mars, and she's holding on to that square with Pluto. So she's activating right around the same time, that square with Pluto, and bringing in that material. I think of the combination of Mercury with Scorpio, with Pluto, with Mars, I'm like thinking of a bloodhound. That's what I always think of. And
yes,
yeah, just really gonna get to it. Really, we're gonna find it. And then who knows what's gonna happen when we find it. But at least we are definitely gonna find it. And I have a lot more to say about that. I'm gonna save that for our weekend wisdom where we talk about dignities in Scorpio, because I think there's some really interesting stuff there. But another thing is that Whitney and I, as she mentioned, we're looking into this sort of like planetary cycle between Mercury and Mars. And because Mercury retrogrades so often and moves so fast, they have a really interesting cycle. It really looks like you're reading the steps to a ballroom dance, because they go square, 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 opposition, square, 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 conjunction, 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 square, opposition,
What's
square.
your
It's like you just
function?
read it. It's like a dance between them. It's really beautiful. But this moment right here, this conjunction, this is actually the first of 5 conjunctions they will make in a row. The next aspects that they will make to each other in a row are 5 different conjunctions: Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Pisces, Aries. And that all happens between now and next spring. Next April is the last one. when we have Uranus back in Taurus, and that'll happen in Aries. So this is just like it feels like a sneaky, significant little transit. This is one of those transits that would never really catch your eye if you were just watching a month ahead astrological media thing. But there's a depth here, to Alex and Whitney's point. There is such a depth. And if nothing else, something that astrologer Greg Crawford recommended in his excellent secondary progressions class, but he even talked about using transits like this to investigate those planets. So even if you have no material that's kind of coming up for you, just using this as an opportunity to look deeper into Mars or look deeper into Mercury might be a really interesting way to use this transit.
I love that. There's so much depth here, and isn't that perfect for a little Mercury-Mars conjunction in Scorpio? Well, and this particular conjunction also factors in very strongly to the next date that we'll highlight, which on the 21st of October, we have the Libra New Moon. Oh, good. My chart is right again. A little celebration dance. So what is going on here? Now, doesn't this look like a beautiful new moon, you guys? We have a new moon in Libra. It is co-present a beautiful Venus in her own domicile. That feels really good. Isn't it interesting that the transit that we just talked about, they're still conjoined. They're at the next degree. I'm talking about Mercury and Mars, right? They're still there. So that is still playing into what is going on here. I also love in this chart that this lunation is square to Jupiter. Like, I think that actually, again, a square is a hard aspect, but I think it's really beneficial here. And I always love to bring the decans in. So this is the third decan of Libra, and this is actually the decan that belongs to Jupiter. So I'm seeing some absolute benefic involvement with this particular new moon. There's that little bit of, if we consider the decanic ruler, some reception here with Jupiter. And it's when I think about this, when I think about Libra, this beautifully poised sign, a sign of balance, and I think about what that means along with Jupiter. Jupiter we can think of as belief and trust, right? And it's like we're starting a new cycle of higher belief in ourselves, and it's Libra, so it's also our partnerships, right? And the people we surround ourselves with. But it's got this little engine that could kind of symbolism to it, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, and it's one of those things where as we're going through this transformation this fall, keeping that positivity top of mind and being able to look at life with a glass half full or through rose-colored lenses, you might say, but that positivity is part of what helps us move forward. And with Jupiter in the mix, there's always a plan for learning and wisdom, right? And it's this newfound wisdom that brings us harmony. And if we're talking, we just spent so much time talking about that Mercury and Mars conjunction, which is so active here. And I think we all said it, and the word that I specifically said was this uncovering, right? And so is this this uncovering or discovering of the way we work best, the way we work best with others? But if we're thinking future state to our water trines, is uncovering the way we create best, right? There's been some sort of stagnancy in the water, right? With the sun in Libra for a whole month, not in its greatest position. And so this feels like a transition point, late Libra, we're ready to move through it. So what do you guys think?
I love all of these points, especially Whitney, because I think astrology a lot of times is a game of relativity. And if you look at the last two lunations, we had the new moon in Virgo square to Uranus, unstable, shocking, all the Uranus things. Then we have a new moon that's an eclipse. this is the first new moon. Like, if you really want to extend it out, you say, like, this is the new moon that ends eclipse season with a big exclamation point, and it's a really nice new moon to do that. Like, relatively to what we have been experiencing, this feels much more harmonious. It feels much more diplomatic. It feels much more like, you know, whatever Mars and Mercury are sort of digging out of the mud. There's like things will be taken care of. We can talk about this. We can have systems of order come in and around it, especially with Jupiter sitting in the square in the square to this. And there's something about, you know, I always joke that each sign has its own mini-series over the sort of its life cycle. And I think the mini-series of Libra, a lot of times, is starting out feeling like they have to be the person who's balancing the scales all the time. It's me balancing the scales. And there's a certain amount of surrender that I think Libra learns over the course of this mini-series, that it experiences over the course of a lifetime, where it's like, there's certain things I can balance and certain things I have to trust to a bigger system or order, whatever I believe that to be. I have to trust that there are bigger systems that are capable of doing that, or coming back online that are capable of doing that. Sometimes that's a bigger part of our mind. Some that might be a higher power, that might be a bigger organization, something like that. But I think that we start to see, like, whatever Mars and Mercury dig up, there's a way we can deal with it that feels orderly, and we don't have to be the one. We may not have to feel like we're the one getting in there to do it. Like, something's just being like, there's an order that's coming back that feels a little bit more like broad and natural.
Oh, that's so beautiful. If you think about this in terms of derivative houses, that Mars Mercury is in the second house to this lunation. And so it's almost like that Mars Mercury, we might lose ourselves to that quest. We might get so deep and intense in there that we forget that that is meant to be, that material there is a resource for this lunation. It is a resource for the diplomacy and the gentility and the ambassadorial Libran stuff that's going on here. And even talking about the institutions, and I just love that because, again, Jupiter would be kind of up there in the 10th house. I see this as very, very good general purpose new moon. Like, there aren't actually that many good general purpose new moons in any calendar year. From like a spiritual perspective, when you start looking at them with astrology, those things that we think, oh, new moon, I'll make this kind of water, this kind of ritual, like they collapse pretty fast because there's always some complicated stuff going on. This one's really nice. This is my favorite lunation of the year. And I, again, have been looking at this since last year. And so I think it works for my personal astrology, but I think it's really good for the world's astrology. And there's like a good balance of what's going on here. It is very balanced. One thing I wanted to point out is that this new moon is literally almost to the day a month after the sun moves into Libra and we had the equinox. Because these lunations are happening at the end of the signs, and that's actually happening all the way through spring. We'll have end of sign lunations. But I think that feeds into the symbolism we're talking about the balance of dark and light and what's going on, because we really had an entire month of the feeling of this moon without actually experiencing the Wheel of Fortune changing about what's happening in this moon. And so I kind of feel, for me, when I look at this, I'm like, if you have leapt, this is where the net appears, this part of the year for everybody. So if you are in the middle of a free fall right now listening to this, hang in there. The net is appearing at the end of this month. There's some important resources that are going to become available for you at the end of this month that are going to change your ability to make decisions about what's going on for you.
I love that. I love that sort of embedded into what you said, Alexandra, was like, things just become a little bit easier, right? And you said that as well, Alex. Like, this time says, like, we don't have to really try so hard. It falls into place. I'm obviously paraphrasing you now at this point, right? But like, what I love about, I'll just bring it back to the decan of Jupiter. So the tarot card, the tarot card in the minor arcana that represents this particular decan is the Four of Swords. And the Four of Swords can look a little threatening at first because it's this like entombed knight, right? With this beautiful stained glass window beyond him. I love how you just have these cards like right on the top. I
have them right here all the time.
love it. You'd think I'd have them, but no, I have my special chosen ones. You can see what I pulled for today for our journey together, the three of us, right?
Oh, that's cute. Cute.
I love it.
So that's why you've had the giggles today. But back to the Four of Swords, like, this is a card that really prioritizes like rest and relaxation and just general like enjoyment as well. But it's almost like a rest that serves a purpose, because like, what is it they say about like creativity requires boredom or something, like creativity needs space to grow, you know what I mean? And I feel like we have been in this time kind of since that Virgo eclipse of like crunch time. You know what I mean? It's getting darker and we're like concerned about our resources, right? And so this is just a beautiful way, a beautiful lunation under which we can like open up some new space in our lives and let things grow.
100%. And the other thing I think, I often wonder about the myth of like the overnight breakthrough. I often wonder about this. And I think that there, you see it online a lot, and you see like all of a sudden the next day this thing changed. And what I don't think we see a lot of times are the millions upon millions of tiny little steps in that direction. The hard work, the inner work, and the outer work that facilitate a kind of like, right? A kind of, and one day it just all clicked into place. And I feel like, if you feel like over the last month, particularly with the eclipses and Venus and Virgo and, all this stuff, the Pluto-Mars square, it's like there's been all this like minutia to deal with and little tiny things to worry about and things to tidy up and things to explore and cathartic experiences and all of the sort of deeper, more methodical stuff that's going on with that. I think that something that will feel really nice with this new moon is this sense of, something fell into place. Something is coming into place. And it seems like it just did, but give yourself credit for, if that happens, all the little tiny steps that you've gone through to get there, because I guarantee you it didn't just fall into place. This is just astrology where like that can coalesce, that can come together, but everything we're going through is not all for naught. It's all leading up to that, and it's facilitating astrology that allows for a more cohesive coming together.
I feel like you guys are giving me the pep talk I need right now. Thank you.
I got you, girl.
That's all we hope for.
I got you.
And hopefully it's a pep talk for everybody else too, or at least some of you out there.
Totally, because after this, it leads right into the water trines. Take us there.
All right. So we are going to bring it home today with the excitement that is our first official water trine. We've been talking about it for months. Some of us have been looking at this for a year plus, right? And here on the screen, I've noted these particular dates. We can be kind of flexible with them, as they begin 10/24 through really 11/3. But we're talking right now about Mercury and Mars, who together trine Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And this water trine, while active for those approximate dates, I think, Alexandra, you said maybe the 5th of November instead of the 3rd, but we're a little flexible if we're depending on what types of degrees we're talking about here, right? So the first official water trine, basically this continues to happen, yes, late October, but also because we know the Sun and Venus are going to follow suit, this water trine energy is here, really through early December. So we've got a good month and a half of, and I think I've said it before on this channel, but what this really speaks of to me, what this water trine speaks of is like pure creativity, because right, what does water do? The element of water, yes, it purifies, it cleanses, but at the end of the day, water gives us life. Water creates. And so I'm really excited. You know, honestly, when we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets involved, which will be 7, I'm not actually super concerned about delineating which transits mean what, right? Because it's more that overarching feeling of momentum that is happening here. I'm curious to hear what you all are thinking.
You know, this is so interesting because I feel like if you really want to track this, if you really like to track astrology, if you go back to last fall, go back to next fall. You could try going back to next fall. That'd be interesting. Do a whole episode on that. If you go back to last fall, and there were similar water trines like happening those were somewhat more Mars dominant. That was Mars in Cancer. Mars was hosting Venus in Scorpio, I believe, and then it was Saturn in
brutal.
Yeah, really. That's more like you were in the feels.
That's the song "Kill Bill" by SZA.
Exactly. That is like, I don't know. You put Sarah McLachlan together with Alanis Morissette, and it's just a party of that, you know. But now we've got a Jupiter-dominant water trines. Jupiter is hosting Saturn. Jupiter is in the superior trine to Mars and Mercury. And Mars is very strong. Mars was in a weakened position last year. Mars is in the stronger position now in Scorpio. So I feel like if you really want to track, you could look at that period of time as the things that came up as sort of like the deeper, more existential stuff that may have arisen last fall. I don't know about resolution. I don't want to oversell Jupiter. I know we all as astrologers tend to oversell Jupiter, which is a very Jupiter thing to do. But there's a sense of, you know, what felt like Mars is just tearing through. There's something about like that cohesiveness. That's been my thesis for the end of the year. There's something about slowly weaving things back together. And also being able to give our intellectual mind a break, give our thoughts a rest, our worries, you know, that over anxious thinking that can really be present when there's a lot of air energy, even air trines, because it's just so much mental energy. There's something about I can give that a rest and I can go into my creative, healing, private, inner emotional space to find some sort of like rehydration, you know, for my system, to feel like, okay, I'm giving all of that mental activity a rest and I'm going to my more inner creative, more private space to heal and regenerate.
Yeah, totally. I think the creativity piece that you're talking about also has this very ancestral quality and like a memory oriented quality for water as well. I'm thinking a lot about all the different scientific experiments that awesome photographers and lab techs do with water, holding memory of different words and shapes and things that are going on. And Alex, to your point about the way that these water trines came last year, like that was brutal. That's not the same as what's happening here. That's not the same as what's happening here. We have Mars in domicile rather than in the softest little parts of us in its sign of its angry fall. Saturn is receiving a trine from exalted host Jupiter in Cancer, and that Jupiter is also trining that Mars. Like, it's very, very different astrology than what's going on here. And to your point, Whitney, it does extend all the way through late December because Mercury stations retrograde in early Sagittarius and actually keeps it alive for longer. So that's something I wanted to flag, because if Mercury is like your time lord for the year, if you have like mercurial pieces of you, this is going to be even more relevant and important. And the date of November 7th, the reason I say that date, that was the date that Venus leaves Libra. And I just feel like it's sweeter when Venus is in Libra. It's still really good after that, don't get me wrong. But then Venus is in Scorpio, you know, being Mars's concubine. But before that, she's in a place of sovereignty in her domicile of Libra. And I kind of just like that better personally. But there's no doubt that this is the best astrology of the year. And something I wanted to say about the trines is that the trine is really the triangle is the strongest shape in geometry. Any pressure you put on any side of a triangle only makes this shape stronger. And the trine in and of itself is said to be of the nature of Jupiter, which means that it supports, it makes more abundant. To Alex's point, it doesn't just do those things. It can make us louder. It can make things bigger. It can make us have little crises of faith, whatever it is. But the trine is an inherently supportive aspect. And so wherever your water houses are in your chart, like take a look at that. And small efforts can really go a long way. And small efforts don't mean do the thing you've been thinking of. It means think more about the thing you've been thinking of. Get creative about the thing you've been thinking of. Write it in your journal one time and actually plant those seeds. You don't have to accomplish whatever it is. But definitely this is a very fertile time period that I would just recommend that people try to make use of. We have a lot of different spaces of dignity for the moon during this really broad time range as well. So good luck, everybody. It's a good period. Whitney, you're muted.
Dear.
Wait, for once in my life, I'm muted? No, I'm just kidding. I don't even remember what I was going to say. Oh, except, yes, good luck, but also, this is kind of, dare I say, lucky astrology in general. So, let's feel into it. And I believe that we can, amp up our own luck, and it's all in our actions and our beliefs. And I think that's really great. I think the last thing I want to mention about what's going on here with this trine, specifically with Mercury and Mars, and every other planet that enters from Scorpio into Sagittarius over this next month and a half-ish, is that those planets are also opposing Uranus when they cross that transformation, right? And Uranus is retrograding back into Taurus. And so I think there's something really about the planets that are kind of holding the inner planets and the sun that are holding this trine together through Scorpio. That opposition with Uranus just amps up the process of transformation, this sort of electric inspired quality that's happening. And I wanted to make sure that we know that, right, as we're talking about this, that's another great quality that we've got going on here. Are there any other thoughts that you all want to leave on this table of optimism before we close out for the day?
The last thing I'll leave everybody with my pearl of wisdom here. I know you're all hanging on the edge of your seat for what I'm about to say. What is he gonna say? Just don't sleep on Pluto. Pluto is squaring. Everybody's paying the toll as they go into Scorpio and squaring Pluto. I think though, constructively, I think that Pluto. I think there's my sense is, and I don't know if this is going to show up in our personal lives or collectively, there's a story from that Mercury station that moves through all these interplanet motions through the rest of the year, particularly with Mercury. There's something about Pluto being activated in the background. And I think we kind of come full circle from the Virgo new moon on August 23rd to those oppositions with Uranus. I'm glad you brought that up, Whitney. I think that there's some sort of mini story there. That's just something I'm noticing. But, just notice for those sort of transformational, going from, the darkness to the light themes coming through in a more emphatic way.
Yeah, I love those squares to Pluto with Mars and Scorpio particularly because there's so much dignity, and it feels like Pluto has been a little ruthless to some people this year. A lot of us probably blocked out January, the spring of this year with all those Mars-Pluto oppositions. Rightfully so. Pluto has been shadowy sometimes this year, and now it's everybody in Scorpio dignified bullying Pluto a little bit in a superior square. So I kind of like that. And I love that note, Alex, because I think this is a really productive time to work with Pluto. And I find that Pluto energy is very easy to work with. What it wants is one foot in front of the other in service of change. And so that's one of the more approachable voices of the astrological cadre. So it kind of feels like this is a really empowering time to lean into that.
Beautiful, beautiful additions, you guys. Thank you so much for taken 49 minutes to chat through all of this optimism that we have to look forward to through the end of the year. And, we want to give a special thank you as well to Adam Elenbaas for letting us be here. I unfortunately forgot to plug Nightlight Astrology at the beginning, so you better believe I'm going to overcompensate now. So, you have to head over to nightlightastrology.com to check out all of the various offers. The biggest deal right now is the fact that it is enrollment season for the first year astrology course. Modern Mystic.
Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. Brought to you by Adam Elenbaas.
Yes, and we are all graduates of this particular program. It is a certification course, so if you have in mind to become a professional astrologer, this is an excellent place to start. And I know for one that I can attest that it really has been the launch point to my astrology career, but also just opened the door to so much beautiful wisdom, symbolism, archetypal learnings, and has been absolutely amazing. The next cohort begins on November 11th. There's currently an early bird payment option available until October 24th, so you've got a couple weeks left to get into that. Tuition assistance, as always, is available, and that's what I know about that.
That's all she wrote.
Alex, you want to promote yourself?
Yeah. You can find me at alexamorosi.com where I promoted, and you also you can book readings and energy work with me there. You can also find me on Substack at The Subtle Universe. I have free subscription options and some paid subscription options. You can check that all out there, and that's where you can find me.
You can find me at 9 Lives Astrology, the number 9 Lives Astrology, and that's 9livesastrology.com. I'm 9 Lives on YouTube. I am 9 Lives on Instagram, and you can book a reading with me. You can follow on YouTube. I do Monday transit reports and all kinds of other fun, spooky stuff coming up for October, so check that out. Whitney?
Amazing. Yes, you can find me over at astroarcana.com to book a reading. I strongly believe there are no bad charts. If you need to see a little bit of optimism in your own chart, please come book a reading with me. We'll uncover it together. You can find me here on YouTube as well at astro.arcana.astrology and at the same handle on Instagram. I hope to connect. With that, I was like, is somebody else gonna? No, this is my job.
And you can find me.
All right. With that, thank you so much for being with us for this weekend's coverage of Weekend Wisdom, and we'll see you next weekend. Bye, all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.